Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And after all the OpTic drama of the off-season, Shotzzy has revealed the key protagonists that were in play. And also the fact that the leaks that came up within the community to Dashy and iLLeY that they were getting dropped before OpTic actually told them, similarly forced OpTic's hand to actually make a decision here before then sitting down and realizing actually it's for the betterment of the team to stay together. And Shotzzy also confirming he's really happy that they are, because he actually doesn't like teams making changes too often. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. 4 years ago yesterday, Black Ops 4 came out. What a title that was. Really Shotzy's inception to some degree in Call of Duty, because he came over from Halo, played some Black Ops 4 trials against iLLeY and others, and was really making his name right in the scene as potentially a Call of Duty talent, where of course, well, he would become over the coming seasons. This just to say real quick, because one of the concerns that Sony has, and also other organizations have, other companies, with the Microsoft Activision acquisition is the fact that apparently Sony think that players are going to switch to Xbox because like there's going to be exclusive features. Now it's kind of funny really, because Sony have literally done this for years, so I don't really know what they're so mad. Well, okay, it's understandable what they're so mad about, but at the same time, Sony have always done this stuff where they have exclusive features for like for players to try and bring people to PlayStation, and now they're kind of not so happy that Microsoft might do that with Xbox if they do buy out Activision effectively. So look, we'll see if this goes anywhere, but Sony understandably are going to have their concerns with Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. And even though I believe that deal has been cleared in some countries and regions, maybe like South America and stuff, it's not got cleared all around the world yet, but maybe in due course it will be if they can get things on the right direction this quickly as well, because next season we still don't know what the plan is for where the stream is going to be broadcasted, let's say. I think when the YouTube deal was first announced, it came out right before the first event back in Modern Warfare. Like we didn't know until like January 2020, I guess it was, when the kind of kickoff event in Minnesota was about to happen. We're now going into 3 years later. And in fairness, I think they have done some stuff before on Twitch here, so some of the Warzone stuff does happen on Twitch, but, just worthy of note here that this, I'm pretty sure exclusively maybe it's just on twitch.tv/Call of Duty, the Fortunes Keep thing this upcoming weekend. I don't know, maybe there's a costume on YouTube or something, who really knows, but still, interesting to mention that still Twitch is kind of in conversation here maybe with the CDL to help the broadcast for next season. We don't really know what the plan is there, whether they will sign a big media rights deal with a Twitch or a YouTube seems unlikely, but or maybe they'll just have both on the table. And with any luck, they're considering the possibilities and the benefits of co-streaming that have been valuable for other organizations as well. So iLLeY, of course, won that throwback tourney, Hitch's Cold War tourney with Standy, Mohawk, and Years. Worthy of mention on Mohawk actually, because as Dashy says, so icy, and you guys were commenting on the video saying, look, hang on a second here, why isn't Mohawk in the CDL? Bit of a strange one, because Mohawk, we believe, has had offers before certainly from the Legion, which are maybe before this season or certainly last season, and I think he's turned down those offers, which I think is understandable to a certain degree, but still, Mohawk I think could have been in the league if he wanted to at this point. That's certainly the discussion. There's some people that say otherwise, but like, I don't know, apparently that could have been the case. So difficult to say really, because Mohawk, you'd imagine, would have got picked up by someone. The guy literally won Challengers Champs 2 years in a row and was tweeting about like, well look, what more do I have to do, right? I've got to do it again 3 in a row. Is that going to be good enough for these teams to give Mohawk a chance? The issue is kind of as more of an AR player, it's difficult to find a spot in the league in general. But I'm sure after everything that's going on right now, not just winning back-to-back Challengers Champs, but even just going straight in and winning this tourney, like he's got to be at the top of mind really for a lot of these teams. And you'd think that there are some AR positions that Mohawk could potentially be an upgrade for in the league. Even last year on Ultra Academy NA, when he was on that team, he was like, what did he 1v3 Methods team Boston Breed, right? Back at the Prime Classic, right? When he took them down, I believe, game 5, round 11 or something. So, yeah, Mohawk, he's an icy player, there's no doubt. I think he would potentially improve some teams in the league, but as yet, no one's really gone for it, right? But who knows, right? The Prime this year is the first event of the season. That gives teams plenty of time to make their mind up, and if Mohawk qualifies for it and competes in it and does well against the pros yet again, then teams will decide to make moves. And if Mohawk did manage to qualify for the Prime, it would be pretty fun if they put his team into the Boston Breaches group, because yeah, Methods versus Mohawk is always seemingly a battle for the ages every time these two guys manage to match up. So let's talk about the OpTic situation then. Of course, they've been up to some crazy stuff lately, including the OpTic NASCAR thing that we talked about just yesterday, but this entire offseason has been crazy for them, and there's still more to come in fairness, right? They've got to decide what their coaching staff's going to be, they've got to figure out their substitute player for the season, but at least their roster is, set in stone in terms of what they're planning to do. Shotzzy's going to be there, Scump, iLLeY, and Dashy as the 4 that they had for the entirety of last season. Now, an interesting video came out a couple of days ago now with Deserto talking with Shotzzy on his career, how he came from Halo Halo to COD, what the situation was on the Dallas Empire, but also how things happened last season on OpTic Texas going into this year with keeping the same roster yet again. One of the first things he discussed actually was the buyout that he had, right? So back in the day when he was on Splice and the kind of Toronto with that organization as well, they wanted to give him a spot maybe on the sub bench going into Modern Warfare. Then, well, basically it was a Hastro that came along with Envy and was like, look, we want you, Shotzzy. We're going to pay the 300k crazy buyout that Huke took a salary cut for to make sure the organization could afford it. Crazy scenes. But of course, that was the start really of Shotzzy's career in Call of Duty. And since then, it's pretty much only been up, especially with the whole OpTic Texas merger. But a few very interesting comments on what happened in this past offseason. Firstly, suggesting that, like, yeah, look, they were considering making changes. That was Scump, Rambo, and Shotzzy, right? The three protagonists we might well expect. With, Scump, of course, is going to be involved in these decisions. Rambo, as well as the coaches, and then Shotzzy also were discussing whether iLLeY and Dashy should be moved on. They were, as he says, not 100 million% sure, but I guess they were pretty sure they wanted to do this, but maybe not absolutely 100% sure, but they, pretty certain that they thought, what, Hydra, Cammy, that could be a good option to go for here because of the kind of internal disagreements they had throughout the season. But the issue was then that maybe they didn't leak anything internally, but possibly from the other camps of those players, Hydra, Cammy, whatever other players they were considering. Hydra got word that, okay, maybe OpTic are interested in me, therefore players from his camp and from Cammy's camp then, leaks start to come out, maybe not from the OpTic guys, but from the players they were talking to. And as such, this then hits the public domain before iLLeY and Dashy know from OpTic that they're considered to be gone. Then they find out from the public eye, and then OpTic were like, well, damn, maybe we just have to double down on this.
Our season was very, I don't even know the word I should use, but it was very unfortunate, honestly. Just like our entire season, it was from inner thumb to, us having intro problems, seeing eye to eye to stuff like that. We're just like, me and Seth and like Ray were like thinking like, what do we think we should, like, what is the best option? Like here, Seth went to, I think, Malibu or something like that for like a week or two. And then finally, whenever he came back, we were discussing, and then everything happened like so fast. We were gonna tell Brandon and Ender, but then I guess they got told from other people, and then that kind of like rushed everything. We weren't 100 million% on like, we're gonna drop him, is what I'm trying to say. Like, it was kind of just forced. So then from there, we're like, all right, now we actually have to make roster changes. So from there, they were dropped for 24 hours. So that same day, once we dropped on social media or whatever, we finally had a team talk, like all four of us. We, hashed things out. We ended up, we're like, all right, let's just play together. Like, we're all family on this team. So, like, we came down to a conclusion. We just sat down and talked, figured stuff out. And then from there, we're going into the next season with the same team. And I'm excited for that because I love these guys. I truly do. Like,
no, that's good.
I hate being on teams, like switching players, stuff like that. Like,
oh, of course.
I hate that stuff. So
I thought it was interesting, the fact that there were so many leaks coming around the community. Of course, Crone even talked about it at the time. It was no surprise really when everyone was starting to talk about this, that indeed OpTic were considering making changes. The thing is, what OpTic's conduct meant really is that I guess they didn't really tell iLLeY and Dashy that they were considering possibilities here, because like, it's difficult to say that to your teammates, right, from a year that you're considering moving forward without them. And of course, at the end of the day, with iLLeY and Dashy, if they were to have been released, as they were for like 24 hours or so, then they wouldn't really have had issues finding another team. So sometimes it can happen where teams drop players, but they don't really tell them until last minute, and therefore it affects their future potential. In iLLeY and Dashy's case, it probably wouldn't have mattered all that much. They'd have been on the team regardless, because things were still in the thick of things, of course, when OpTic were making these moves. But I guess they were kind of hesitant to say, Dashy, we're not sure if we want to continue with you. Like, feel free to kind of look at some offers, and like, we'll decide over the coming days what we want to do. They didn't really tell them, and therefore I guess they thought, well, damn, iLLeY and Dashy have just found out for this leak online that we want to drop them, and we haven't really told them personally, so this feels kind of bad. Maybe we just need to double down and say, you know what, he's going to hate us for this, so let's just get rid of him type thing. So I guess they felt kind of cornered really when all these leaks were coming to the public that they were considering the change. And of course, like, Dashy didn't know he was getting dropped, right? We saw his stream that he was talking really confidently about the team and how things were going to go going forwards, and then the next day the announcement is that he's getting dropped, and it's like, hang on a second here, it didn't seem like Dashy really knew that until the leaks started emerging, and then the team thought, you know what, we're forced into this, we've got to cut the cord effectively. And then they actually decided to sit down and decide, you know what, this maybe isn't the wisest idea, because dropping Dashy and iLLeY is probably not the best thing. And in fairness, I do wonder if to some degree the community backlash helped Dashy and iLLeY's case here, because I mean, look, look, you just have to look into the replies very quickly to see people that are like, what are they doing? I mean, look, there's a Birdman smashed my TV in front of 30 guests. So, I mean, yeah, like, obviously people were not happy. I mean, the comment section of their podcast as well was an absolute disaster after they dropped Dashy as well. So, I don't know if that backlash kind of, well, forced their hand to a degree as well the other way. But still, in the end, they decided to run it back. But it was interesting to hear also what Shotzzy said on the fact that they had internal differences was also happening, not just the iLLeY thumb injury, but in terms of kind of where they wanted to play the game and stuff. But also he wanted to say, look, he's happy they're staying together. He loves the team, he loves the guys on this team, and wants to run it back with the same roster and enjoys doing that because, he's not so keen to make drastic changes like he's done in the past before. Not necessarily him individually, but his teams have done in the past in previous years, dropping Huke, dropping Clayster, sometimes forced to do that, of course, by the external circumstances. But yeah, Shotzzy's down to keep team with these guys for this season. But obviously there was a very good reason, I suppose, why they were going to make this decision initially. And I mean, look, that's the real question for OpTic this season. What does it mean if things start to go wrong? If they lose another game 5 to Florida Mutineers, like, what does it mean for the kind of internal situation and dynamic within this team? And also it's critical to Scump's future as well, because if this team doesn't do well this year, what are the chances of Scump sticking around for year 2? They certainly diminish quite significantly after deciding not to make a change at the end of the day. Let's talk some power rankings actually, because the Flank came out with theirs a couple of days ago. We did ours on the Break and Void podcast, and this is just going into the first event. I do like easyMax actually. easyMax is right here. The rankings that we have is effectively like the GOAT tier, right? S tier, you could argue. Then contenders, so teams that you would expect to contend for the championship going into the first event. Then Dark Horse teams. Then straight up just happy to be here teams. This is what easyMax came up with. Like, I kind of like this list. To me, I feel like Minnesota, I can't really have them third on my list. I know that easyMax really high on Minnesota and their potential, as I am, but I would personally take teams that are kind of more proven, like OpTic and Surge over Minnesota for now, but I do still have them in this tier. I think the rest of our tier lists were relatively similar. This is my one, so I've got FaZe number 1. I haven't got Thieves up there for now, because look, I think the Thieves fall to me in a category with those other top teams as kind of being contenders to win the first event, but not necessarily the outright favourites. I think it's very rarely translated that the team that wins champs wins the first event of the new season. That rarely ever happens. It's happened maybe only a few times in COD history, if that, to be honest. Now, some people might say we're overrating FaZe here, putting them number 1, but to me, FaZe are FaZe. I think personally the slasher move could be good for them, and even if it's not so good for them, they're still going to be right up there. And I'd still be incredibly mind-blown this year if they don't top the standings for CDL points and stuff. So to me, they still go in really to the first event of the season as favourites. They certainly have made a change to try and make that happen. So look, we'll see, but it's early game. Anything can happen. The first event often throws up some surprises, so it is difficult to do too many. Like, this is why I really wanted to do only 4 tiers here, because any more than 4 tiers, you're separating the teams too much, because kind of anything can happen first event, as we have seen in the past. But to me, FaZe are just a slight tier above anyone else. You could certainly put Thieves up there, but to me, I don't expect them to start out incredibly strong, but I do expect them to get better as the season progresses. Then it's LA Thieves, OpTic, Surge. To me, they're all in the kind of contenders category. Surge, I expect them to start out strong. OpTic, of course, are going to be here. And then Minnesota, out of all the other teams, they're the team that I also put in this category. The team that I have the most faith that actually has, the core and the chemistry to make it happen. I've got too many questions about all the teams in the Dark Horse category to, like, okay, the New York situation, Priester, who knows how that's going to go. Boston, I'm not sure, like, how their SMG duo is going to work in this game. Are they going to be a bit too aggressive? LAG, of course, that core 3, apart from Arcitys, was pretty woeful at the end of last season, so I can't put them in contenders yet, although I do have them above Boston and New York, because I do think, like, this team's going to grind hard. They could get a decent result at the first major, but over time, I'm still not convinced it's going to be particularly successful. And then Toronto could be great, but to me, I don't think they're good enough for contenders yet. Standy and CleanX have too many questions about them as an SMG duo. How's Scrappy going to work with the chemistry? So I think, to me, the way that these tiers are done, this is in order, by the way, left to right, the way we've done it here. But I think this is probably about right. The other thing that Crone did actually is put Florida in the kind of Dark Horses tier, which I think is also understandable. To me, it's quite clear that it's Vegas and London in the bottom part somewhere. You could swap these guys around, but yeah, I don't have much faith in either of these teams. Florida, I think, will get more points than these other teams below them here on my rankings at least, but I don't think they're quite good enough to be worthy of a Dark Horse situation, because like any of these teams in Dark Horses I think could actually possibly win. Maybe not Boston, but I think the other guys could potentially win. From my perspective, there's just no way Florida are winning an event. They can upset some teams and kind of be a Dark Horse for a decent run, but they're not going to be winning anything. So to me, I think they're down there, unless they get a crazy search and destroy run like a Los Angeles Guerrillas back at Major 2. But very much interested your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care, and I'll see you next time.